Wonderful.
It's 9 p.m. in Moscow. And
sorry, how long is the call going to be?
55 minutes.
5 minutes.
An
okay.
hour in total.
Yes, an hour in total.
We have 50 minutes for this before we're going to start to give our favorite tips, and then they have 5 minutes to wrap up, something like this.
Yes. And then we'll open up coffee break rooms. So we run breakout rooms for people just to interact in a free mode. And
shall we stay around for that?
If you have the time, that would be great.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so we can start. Okay. So good evening, everybody. And my name is Natasha, or Natalia Vizgeper, and I'm very happy to welcome you to this session, the last session of day 7 of the first online embodiment conference. And today with us, we have Gayatri Schriefer and Brian Siddhartha Ingle. Yes, I hope I pronounce your names correctly. Sorry if I don't. And Gayatri and Brian will do a session which is called Living Somatics, Strategies for Learning and Transformation. Gayatri Schriefer and Brian Siddhartha Ingle are certified Somatic educators from the Nevada Institute for Somatic Research and Training in California in the United States. Their background is predominantly in Somatics, the Feldenkrais method, biodynamic, craniosacral therapy, osteopathy, dance, and yoga. They have lifelong experience in the field of somatic movement and are dedicated to transformational somatic practices. Brian and Gayatri run Living Somatics. They currently offer professional training programs worldwide in the clinical hands-on work and teaching the movement lessons of somatic education. In the Russian-speaking countries, they have taught trainings in Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus for almost 10 years. So I finished my introductory part. I'm very happy to give the words to both of you and looking forward to the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We are really happy to be here with all of you and being a part of this big embodiment conference offered in the Russian-speaking language after it's been translated. So thank you so much for having us.
Yes, it's a pleasure to be here. We're very happy to share any insights we have to help you in your path and in your transformation and your somatic learning.
Yes, and because we have taught in the Russian-speaking countries for many years, we know that when we teach, we often have to slow down a little and give space for that translation to happen. So we're going to try to not speak too fast, so there is space for the translation to happen afterwards. Excellent. So we are here to introduce the work of Living Somatics to you all. And I know we already have some of our students and graduates from across the world on this call, which is really happy. I see someone here from Belarus, from Ukraine, and from Russia, and even from Sweden. So welcome all of you, new and old faces. And we're going to start off with give a little bit of a context to the work that we are doing, because this is an embodiment conference. So I want to hand over the word to Siddhartha so that he can start to explain a little bit about the work we do.
Sure. Well, let's first of all define what the word soma means. And soma means the mind and the body and the living essence, the spirit, is really one unit. They're not separated. We refer to the mind and we refer to the body, but really our deep understanding is that it is one and the same thing. And a lot of transformational methods is sort of, if I can use the word top down, using the mind and cognitive sort of stuff to make changes. But actually a lot of the holdings that we have, or the limitations that we have, or the trauma that we have is held in our body. Even though when I say body, I mean mind body. So I'll use those words, but always know I'm referring to the whole. So we use a bottom-up approach where we start to explore the way we use ourselves, how we feel ourselves from the inside. And of course, the important thing is how we feel and use ourselves in relation to another or in relation to our environment. Because, you know, here we are in the world, and it's how we interact with the world and where all our changes can take place. So it's not just this internal process, but somehow we settle into this awareness process from internally, so that we can respond in a much more healthy and appropriate way in our environment.
Yeah, and so what can be good to know about the work we do is that it's awareness-based, and it's a neuromuscular re-education. So it's really about going into the inside of yourself and then making those changes on a neurological level, so that you are more connected within yourself, not just in sense, but somatically, which Siddhartha was just speaking about, means in the entirety of who you are, so that you have more of yourself to access in daily life. So in this work, we teach both clinical hands-on work, where we assist individuals one-on-one to, after tailoring for specific needs, to uncover any holding or any habitual strain that is there towards more freedom. So we also teach group lessons. So these are movement lessons, often done laying down. It's about improving the sensory motor feedback loop. And in very simple terms, that just means that we improve the way we feel ourselves and the way we move. So we use movement, simple movement, to practice our proprioceptive abilities, our ability to sense ourselves. And with that, we have a lot of different possible benefits.
So let's talk about this awareness strategy, because any self-development or transformational method involves awareness. Without awareness and without self-awareness, then nothing's really going to shift at all. And what is the particular type of awareness that we're working with in somatic education, HANA Somatics, and the Feldenkrais method? And that is, as Gayatri will speak to, it's related to the nervous system, and it's related to proprioception. So proprioception is how we feel ourselves in space and how we move ourselves in space, and our awareness around that. And what's happened in our modern day society is that we have gradually lost this ability to feel ourselves and use ourselves and know where we are in space in the right way. When we were babies, we spent a lot of time learning. In fact, this was the only way that we learned. We didn't learn cognitively. We learned through proprioceptive awareness. We figured out how to sort of like lift up our head, and we figured out how to crawl and how to sit and how to stand up and how to run. And somewhere with the Western educational system, they sort of left it there. And we just sort of got into sort of like memorizing things and regurgitating facts, and not really coming back to this very natural way of learning around our proprioceptive system. So the interesting thing that happens is that once you come back to this way of learning, and you start feeling yourself from the inside and getting more comfortable in your skin, because you're becoming more apt at that, there's a change in the way that you perceive information. So before I got into the somatic work, I was into structural osteopathy and very academic degree in osteopathic medicine. It's like studying medicine and manipulative medicine also, but it's very heavy academically. And then I noticed that when I came back to this proprioceptive way of learning, that I would absorb knowledge and information very much on a body level. I would sort of take it in, and this is where I point to when I'm talking about myself. It's sort of somewhere in the midline behind the heart. I would absorb information on this level and intuit the understanding and feeling, and of course the intellect's involved as well, but it's a very feeling sort of sense, an intuitive sort of sense. So when we learn in this way, it tends to stay with us in a more meaningful way, because we understand somatically, we sort of have a felt sense of it inside it. And on that note, in terms of transformation, the science behind transformation and even around cognitive therapy has always stated that the only thing that they can point at in terms of change is when there is a somatic felt sense of aha on a bodily level. And then the thing that they're working with actually changes because they've got it on the body. So it's a very authentic way in for transformation. And one of the learning strategies around that, and this key learning strategy, is awareness, and to use awareness in this context in terms of bodily awareness, how we use ourselves, how we feel ourselves, and then how do we relate physically to the environment. So this is the first very important somatic learning strategy for transformation awareness.
Yeah, beautifully said there, Siddhartha. And so the work we do, so most embodied work and definitely the somatic work which we are doing. So we are HANA somatic educators. We're trained in HANA somatic education and we teach somatic education. And in our work, so we give a lot of trainings. So if it's, whether it's a learning environment for a group, so we have a few of our students in training or graduates are on the call. So whether you are creating a platform for a group to learn, or many individuals as a part of a group, or you're working with a group when they roll around on the floor, or if you work with an individual one-on-one, it's all about creating a learning environment. So it's never about the facilitator, the educator. Even we don't call ourselves, we don't give a treatment, it's an education. So it's all about, everything is about how can I support the learning for that individual? What are the elements required for that person to be able to learn? And so we have a few things that are in relation to that. For example, if we don't increase pain, that's going to help. Of course, people can come to us with pain, that's very common, but then the pain shouldn't increase. If a person, ideally, you will learn the best when there is no pain present, because the brain will register that pain and give it a lot of attention. So it'll be harder to learn, generally speaking. You also have, it will help you if you feel safe. So if you feel settled, for example, if we all know a situation where we have felt comfortable or accepted or loved, that's very different to when we feel threatened or stressed or anxious. So it's a very different setup internally in terms of our ability to perceive and to be receptive and learn. So we work a lot with that. And Siddhartha was speaking about the somatic state, about self-awareness, about our ability to sense ourselves. So in this work and in this approach of somatic work, we really do our best to support the individual, the soma, to become self-reliant. So when we're in the state of, I would call it self-trust, that means I have an inner sensation and I've learned how to make sense of that sensation, of that feedback, so that that feedback will aid me in anything I do in life. That means every interaction, every experience in life becomes a learning possibility. And for me, learning is this, right? Learning, what is that? A state of what? If you think about it, you can even write in the chat if a word comes up, what is learning for you? What is required for you to learn? Like maybe curiosity, right? I don't know if someone is writing in the chat, but so think about, say again?
I just wanted to add one thing that you said around being seen, or what Eleanor Crystal Hanna and Tom Hanna referred a lot to as unconditional regard. So this place of comfort, of feeling seen, feeling comfortable, is probably, and without discomfort, of course, is probably one of the key strategies for learning and transformation. Because unless we're feeling really at ease in our system, there's no way we can trust the other person. And a lot of sort of like body work that people do, they don't really consider the person in terms of how they're receiving this information, in terms of what their hands are doing with their patient, in our case, with our students. We're trying to create conditions for them to learn. But for them to feel supported, for them to feel this safety. How do we create these conditions for safety? And it's so important. I can't overemphasize this. For instance, sometimes when I'm working with somebody on the table, you know, I put my hands on them in a certain way where they can get a sense, oh, they're not wanting anything from me. They're not imposing anything on me. They're listening to my system, and they're listening to me, listening to my system. And maybe that's not even going on a conscious level, but on an unconscious level, it's certainly going on. And with that, there's a shift. There's a dramatic shift to, oh, I can trust what's happening here. And they shift to what's called this polyvagal theory, where they shift to this sense of safety, security, learning. And this is the vagus nerve is part of the peripheral nervous system related to the parasympathetic nervous system. And the vagus nerve means meandering nerve, and it's a very important nerve in the cranial nerve in relation to the parasympathetic nervous system. And it's related to heart, liver, digestive organs, etc. But then what Stephen Porges has figured out is that there's a myelinated part to it, which is to do with facial expression and social engagement. And it's very much related to this feeling of safety. And it can go the other way, where it goes into like disassociation. When you're traumatized, like an animal is traumatized, it feigns death and it pretends that they're dead and it disassociates. But it can go the other way, where there's safety, and it comes into this place of comfort and ease and this facial, social facial sort of expression. So when I, as an educator, place my hands on a student in such a way where they're feeling, oh, they don't want anything from me, they're not going to harm me, they're respecting my limits, this shift happens into this, oh, I can trust what's happening here, and I can learn something here because I trust. Because unless you're at ease and enjoying a process that you're in, learning does not really take place. And transformation, authentic transformation cannot take place unless we're in this place of the myelinated vagus nerve, where we feel seen, we feel heard, we feel respected. And this was a very big point. Before polyvagal theory came out from Eleanor and from Tom, where it's like humanistic psychology, these were the founders of humanistic psychology, and they were very, very much about unconditional regard. So for all you people working out there with bodies and in education, if there's one takeaway in terms of how do you shift where you're working and the student sort of really trusts in what you're doing, whatever you need to create that environment, I would say that is much more important than anything that you're doing with your hands. So key point here: safety, security, trust, unconditional regard.
Yeah, wonderful. So we have this learning environment where it's the external environment. And like we already touched on, we have the internal learning environment, or if we can put it that way. But our relationship within ourselves, the way we are wired, the way we are sensing. And so inherent in this work is about honoring the first person experience. That means, what do you feel? What is your reality? And that is the beauty, I think, of somatic education, of somatic work, and of embodied work, is that it gives value to the first person experience. And I would assume that to everybody on the call, or most of us, it's a natural thing. It's something maybe that we take for granted. But once in a while, I get a reality check and I get reminded of the rest of the world. And I remember that is not the case for everyone. So this is still a type of intelligence, or a way of organizing ourselves, that still has huge potential to be reaching across the globe, and I would say alleviating a lot of suffering in the world. And so that's why I'm so happy that this conference is being put on in the Russian-speaking countries. It really joys my heart. And I see it time and time again, how it liberates people. Just the simple fact that what I feel is valid, right? What I sense is real, and I don't have to justify it in any other way than feeling it. So we're going to speak a little bit more about that later, how to cultivate our ability to feel ourselves, and also what the greater benefits of it is. But Siddhartha, if you don't mind, I just wanted to go over some of the answers in the chat. Yeah?
Yes.
So we asked earlier, what are elements involved in learning or support learning? And you have written really lovely things. I began with writing, being allowed to fail. So when we learn, it's something sometimes a little bit uncomfortable. It can also be very pleasurable and enjoyable. But being allowed to fail, that we're in a safe environment where we can try, we can practice and play, and we're allowed to get it wrong. So we have here, we have safety and curiosity, focus and attention, and trying. Alina put trying, exactly this, practicing, testing it out. And Maria says accept or surrender the flow of experience. Beautiful. And here we have another person, acceptance of current yourself the way you are now. Yeah, exactly, acceptance of how it is right now. And so you can all write, if you're not fully comfortable writing in English, you can always write in Russian and someone will translate it for us. So please feel free. My Russian is still very poor, so I do apologize. So let's see. So we're all agreeing on that learning is a particular state of mind, or it's a certain way of approaching ourselves and our surrounding. And I would say from this place of learning and learning how to learn, because if I am full, it's like what could be an analogy could be this. If I listen to really blast, I'm sitting in my mom's kitchen and she has a radio back here. And so she likes to crank up the music when she's cooking and stuff. So I'm just visiting her now. And when I arrived, she didn't hear me because the music was loud. You know, it's just a small analogy of when the internal noise is very loud, we can't take in more, we can't hear. So with embodied practices and somatic practices, we learn how to decrease the noise, or we learn how to have a volume control so that we are able to feel ourselves, we're able to perceive ourselves, our surrounding, other people, and furthermore, we're able to make sense of it. So when we have something happens, we have an internal response, we can feel that and we can track that. So that it's a sort of classic thing, right? We're not reacting, we are acting, you know, so we can respond, which means freedom. Siddhartha said this at the beginning of the call. So ultimately, all these things are about how can we live life more freely? How can we have more of ourselves to, draw from, access more of ourselves so that we are available for a fuller life experience. So that's now when we're shifting a little bit from learning and how it translates very effortlessly into transformation, which is for me about freedom and liberation, awakening on a somatic level, which means on every level. So, Siddhartha, any ideas?
Yes, I'm just thinking about that there, and a lot of people come to us with pain in their body, and that's why they end up on our table or end up in our group lessons. They don't come because they want to improve their proprioceptive awareness, because they don't even know what that is. They don't come because they want, to our work anyway, because they want transformation. But often what they get is transformation, even though they weren't asking for it. But it's an interesting one because, life, you know, has its uncomfortable element, you know. And it's like, oh, we all go through uncomfortable times and challenging times. And as you just said, Gayatri, you know, it's the thing that's happening. How do we respond to that thing that happens? How do we somehow give space for that thing to happen? How can we have patience? How can we apply the strategies to an uncomfortable, painful situation and allow learning to happen in that context? Because there is so much discomfort, there is so much pain that's happening in the world. I mean, you might be familiar with the whole opioid crisis that's going on in the United States, and the doctors have just ended up, not all of them, but it just ended up being legal drug pushers. And they just haven't been able to find authentic strategy to deal with common musculoskeletal pain. And their strategy is suppress the symptoms or do some surgery. So they're a little bit behind here in terms of what is the causative factor here behind pain. And hey presto, somatic education comes in with the understanding that it's related to function. It's a lot of the pain issues that we have are related to that we're just not using ourselves in the right way, and we've lost our proprioceptive ability to feel ourselves. So we come in with this pain and discomfort, and we learn these strategies to sort of be okay with things, to respond to things in a different way, to have a little bit more equanimity, to learn to feel ourselves, to learn to move ourselves in a different way, to learn to respond to the environment in a different way. And slowly, we start to shift in our thinking. And when we shift in our thinking, we shift in our action and how we are in the life. So how does this awareness factor, how does this unconditional regard with ourselves, our acceptance of ourselves, how does it happen that these learning strategies end up with us taking a different course of action in our lives? And a lot of it is to do with, as we started first saying, that mind and body are the same thing. The thinking reflects the body reflects the thinking. So if we take on these strategies and we learn something about ourselves, and our thinking shifts, and then we make different plans to move in a different way because something shifted in our body. And somewhere, like we have this with a lot of our students, they start off, they don't really know exactly what they're signing up for. And at the end of the 2 years, they're like in a completely different place in their lives. And after 4 years, they're in a completely different place of their lives. And like, how did that happen? They were rolling around on the floor. Somebody had their hands on them in a way where there's this unconditional regard. But we were addressing something very, very deep. We were addressing their nervous system and perhaps addressing something prior to their nervous system, which is health, which is this ability of self-organization and self-correction and homeostasis, giving a chance for the inner physician to show itself, to make changes, to correct itself, to come into its power of confidence, and from that place, move differently in the world and make different decisions and end up in a place where at the end of your life, you're like, I was happy with the decisions I made and the things that I did, and not what most people feel at the end of their life is like, I just missed that opportunity because I was thinking about what everybody else wanted me to do and not really knowing what I wanted to do, or even if I did know, hadn't got the courage to make that step.
Wow. Wow, that's just, that is what this kind of practice is about, how we can live more fully. And we do it in such simple ways. So just in a moment, we're going to guide you through a very short practice of how to cultivate proprioceptive awareness. But I was just thinking about maybe we would want to hear someone else on the call, maybe one of our graduates, maybe Alina, maybe you can speak a little bit briefly about what the transformational powers has been of a somatic practice for you. Something like that. Maybe it's nicer for someone else to, for the others to hear someone else speak about it.
Okay, hello
everybody. Hi, Alina.
I'm very happy to be here and to share this experience with you. For me, somatics started with, unfortunately, with the pain, and it where I was when I met somatics. And for me, it was a very exciting and transformational way from the pain through the acceptance, through different tryings, to the curiosity, freedom, and a lot of different interesting things that I can explore right now. So it was about how can I change my perspective to see everything around in a with a different angle. How can I change my perspective to my own body, to my own feelings, to my own sensations? How can I go through them to different state of mind? So it was very interesting from the beginning, because from the very beginning I started to feel less pain, and it was very important for me that time. But now I realized that from the pain I came to explorations and to discovering of a lot of different interesting things. So it's an amazing way of exploring.
Beautiful, well said. So thank you so much. Yes, it's a lot about shifting your perspective. And I think Siddhartha spoke so beautiful about the state of receptivity and somatic awareness that Natalia reminded us and said, perhaps we could do a little try it out session. So Siddhartha, can we do that now?
Yes, how long have we got left now in the call?
So we have enough time. So let's just do a few minutes of a feeling it. We have about 20 more minutes of our session. So I think let's just start off with getting yourself comfortable. So I think most of you are sitting. If you're lying, that's fine too. Just get yourself comfortable. Maybe if possible, you can just wiggle a little bit. Maybe you've been sitting still. So just get into yourself and put your feet on the floor. If you're sitting, put your hands maybe in your lap and just start to attune with yourself. You can take a few breaths here. Obviously, continue breathing, preferably through your nose. And just become present with yourself. Bring your first person experience to the forefront of your awareness. Are there any thoughts present? Any emotions? Can you just honor them without trying to change anything, without trying to add anything? Just allow things to be for what they are right now. And can you shift your awareness inside of yourself into physical sensations? Perhaps you can feel your sit bones onto the chair or the sofa, wherever you're sitting. Or if you're laying down, the contact through the back of you. Maybe you can feel your feet onto the floor. Siddhartha, you want to continue?
Sure. So Soma means wholeness. Can you sense the whole of yourself, the three-dimensional you, the length of you, the width of you, and the depth of you, from the backside of the breastbone to the spine, front of the spine, and notice your breath. Where do you feel the movement of your breath? Where's the first movement of your breath on this physicality, this living person you are? Where do you feel movement? can you feel the breath coming in through your nostrils, down to your throat, into your lungs, and downwards, so that the belly just allow the belly to soften on the inhale. Just invite the belly to be soft on the inhale. And notice there's a pause at the end of the inhale. And there's a pause at the end of the exhale. Pay extra attention to the pause at the end of the exhale. Now your heart sits on the diaphragm, and the diaphragm moves downwards, pushing the belly out when you breathe in. And when you breathe out, the diaphragm comes back to its umbrella place and lifts the heart. At the end of the exhale, explore the movement of the heart being lifted. And something at the back of the spine open. The back of the middle back. Can you feel the spine from the inside now to the front of the spine, where the heart is in front of the spine? And invite that area to totally soften at the end of the exhale. Hang out in that silent spot at the end of the exhale, just a little longer, as long as it's comfortable. And notice that the throat starts to open. Invite this place of security and ease and comfort that you're finding here at the end of the out-breath. And invite that resource of ease and comfort to spread to the whole of you. And to include the bioelectric field, the area around the skin, this bubble that's part of your personal space. Include that in your wholeness, in your sense of self. This is me in my entirety. I am at ease. All is well in my world. I feel all of myself. And I'm okay with who and where I am. And know that that resource, this feeling of okayness, this feeling of warm okayness, is always accessible for you. And you can find that resource in the midst of your activities.
Very nice. So just notice yourself now. If you want, you can open your eyes softly, but see if you can remain within that self-connection. And notice your inner state. How do you sense yourself now? We just spent a few minutes of just attuning to oneself. And we used two very simple, well, the main thing was awareness, because we actually didn't move. Beyond the movement of the breath, we didn't do any big vigorous movements. In the somatic work, we often do movements, and we train our awareness grounded in the sensation of movement. But in this case, Siddhartha predominantly guided us very beautifully to just sense and to move your own awareness. Now, see what was the impact of that. Does anybody want to share? You can also share in Russian if you don't feel comfortable sharing in English. Just wave. I think there's a way to raise your hand, and then Julie will know and unmute you. What was the impact of this simple exercise for you? Who wants to share? Okay.
Or if anybody has a question about any of the topics that we spoke on, they can raise their hands or they can type in the question, and then Russian is fine too. And then we'll get that translated into English and we will answer your question. So is there any questions out there from anybody about this work that we've just done, or anything that we spoke of in the call so far?
Could I share?
Yes, please.
Because I'm the host, I don't know if
you're allowed to share.
Yeah, because I did the practice and it was beautiful. Thank you very much. There was one very distinct and beautiful moment of when you gave the instruction to about the kind of outer layer of myself. Yeah, I don't remember the exact instruction, but it felt like as if suddenly the outer layer appeared and then it's kind of integrated. Yesterday we did a session with Dylan Newcomb and we also worked with like personal space, and it was a beautiful moment of integration of that work, embodied work, with this. It was suddenly just like became so clear, and as you said, went straight into the center, like straight into the body of this is my space, like, and everything is okay. So at the end, I felt like this very deep sense of security. And thank you very much for this. It was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Security, because then you're shifting to this place of safety and this polyvagal theory that I spoke of. And when you're in that place, you know, life has a much more pleasant and meaningful experience when you feel secure and when you feel safe. And it's accessible to us with some training, because a lot of us are very much in the sympathetic nervous system, which is fight or flight, or they're in this whole just cut off, disassociated. They just can't feel themselves at all or their bodies, you know. And I think that's in a traumatized culture, there's a lot of that going on where people just, they're even afraid of feeling their emotions, of feeling their body. And this somatic journey has to just start off in very small steps. But certainly finding security and finding safety enables that journey, to somatic journey to start.
Wonderful. So we have a few people who are also sharing what they felt. They're saying that Maria said that she had a headache before and now her head feels lighter and more like as if it has more air inside. And so that's wonderful. And she also experienced heat. Alina is saying she felt silence, and she felt big, warm calmness inside. We also have more, Leona says, calmness and relaxation. And Julia is sharing, I was tired and now I feel energy. And me, myself, I also felt a difference. It was lovely to just drop in that way for a moment. Here, Inna is saying peace inside and acceptance of my emotions, of me, emotions, and didn't resist them. See? By the simple shift of attention, that is the power we hold. That is how we affect our first person experience. So with very simple training, we can develop these skills. And I would say, do something that brings, okay, so a few things what you can do is you can learn to orient around what gives you comfort and pleasure. Then I don't mean in the way of pleasure seeking, oh, I'm just going to eat good food and have sex all day. That's not the kind of pleasure I'm speaking about. I'm speaking about appreciation of spaciousness, of connection, of the shift in sensations. We learn that by focusing on quality of movement, by not maybe going past our natural boundary in movement, by honoring our limitations. So by anchoring our awareness on slow mindful movement, we have the ability to, one, release tension somatically, but we also simultaneously are practicing, learning how to make sense of what we are sensing and increasing our ability to sense. And for me, to be able to sense myself or others, the surrounding, the universe, the animals, whatever it's going to be, that is where my freedom lies. My misery comes from when I shut down, when I stop being able to receive or perceive. So yeah, we love these things. We could speak about this for hours. So we're trying to keep it a little bit on topic here. And we have Lena saying, how do you choose the words so perfectly to guide to this safe space? Many thanks for this beautiful practice. Yeah, well, practice is one. Aliona's giving it a thumbs up. Well, I think it's about, again, we have the focus of how do we create a learning environment? And we tailor our guidance with clarity, so to support your inner exploration. So if it's beautiful, look, I'm happy that it resonated with you, but it's about, in the somatic work, there is a reason for what we do. There should be a learning. It wasn't just pleasant words, but it was there to guide us into greater self-connection.
I just wanted to add one thing here in terms of like a top tip, because I'm speaking from India right now. And one of my resources for myself is being in nature. And that's not true for me, that's true for everybody. And every day I'm in the ocean, and I do surf, wave ski stuff, and I'm surfing waves, and I'm in fresh sea air, and I'm in touch with the water element, and when I'm walking barefoot on the sand by the sea and so forth. This, and the sunlight on my face, especially at sunset, it's just a beautiful time to be in that very beautiful Indian setting sun, and the water is warm, and the air is warm, and it's just a sweet spot that happens. And I feel it nurtures my system so well. And again, I think our natural place for human beings has predominantly been in contact with the elements. And we've been removed from that because of developmental sort of things that have taken place in modern times. But to find space for our relationship with the whole of ourselves, with our environment regarding nature, whether that be mountains or sea, or even just taking off your shoes and having your feet on the grass. I think this is a tremendous somatic resource to find pleasant sensation, to find ease, to find joy, by getting the whole of us involved in nature, in whatever, and especially if there can be movement, pleasurable movement involved in that. Just thought I'd add that experience.
That's
today.
lovely. Is it okay that we go into our top tips now, Natalia, or are we too early?
Well, you could go into top tips now.
Good. Thank you. Great. So that was one from Siddhartha. So that was about allowing the elements to nurture you. So that was sort of what I was speaking about before, was what nurtures you, what gives you pleasure and comfort, because that is a gateway towards somatic freedom. Because that, if we allow ourselves to start to feel. So if we know what gives us pleasure, we also immediately know what gives us pain. And if we know that, we suddenly have a roadmap of where to navigate, instead of just having this numbness to us where we're just trying to get through the day or life or so. So I would say my top tip is, it's going to be a practical one, very simple one. So it's a movement, and some of you know it. So you just sit and you have your hands either like this or like that in your lap. And all you're going to do is you're going to bring your attention to your sit bones, and you're going to roll on your sit bones towards the front and towards the back. And as you may noticing, your pelvis is moving. And what's attached to the pelvis? Your spine. So what you can do now is you bring your attention to the back of your head and your tailbone as you're arching the back. And then you round over and you shorten your front. So it's a back-front relationship exercise. And it's going to take you into an exploration of where you are in space, which also means where you are with yourself. So you can decrease the movement. So you arch, you look up, you round over, and you look down. And you can think of your head as an extension of the spine. And it's predominantly about what's happening through your center, your lower back. And then you decrease the exercise, the movement, so that you go a little bit behind a neutral, like where your lower back is flat. And so you start to notice, where is neutral? You go a little bit in front. And so you start to decrease the movement until you come to a flat back, what you feel is sitting upright on top of yourself. So very simple exercise. And when you come to this neutral, notice how you feel. Do you feel upright? Where are you in space? So it's a really simple way of finding a neutral through your lower back, which also is, your center, your abdomen. And you can do that in the car, in the office. You can do it sitting up or laying down. So that's a tip, a practical application of what we have been speaking about. And also a way to come out of your pattern, So if you feel very arched, you can go into that first. If you feel very rounded over, you can focus on coming into that, closing yourself, and then opening up. So in the somatic work, we always go with. So instead of resisting what's happening, we increase that to come out of it. Great. Wonderful. So any last question because we're almost now at the very, very end. It's been so lovely to sit with all of you and give you a little glimpse of what our work is about. And if you have any questions, we're going to stay afterwards a bit as well. And you can always contact us or one of our team members. We have team members in a lot of the different Russian-speaking countries. So, Siddhartha, any last?
Thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure sharing our work with you all. And the Russian-speaking countries, it's dear to my heart. It was something that was very much unknown to us for forever, and because of we didn't really have much relations with the ex-Russian-speaking countries, other ex-Soviet countries, the Russian-speaking countries. So to come into it and to explore your culture and who you are as a people has been a fascinating journey for us, and we really respect the actually, you know, I respect more the heart of the Russian-speaking people. You come across a little bit confrontational initially, but just beneath that, there's such a beautiful tenderness and a beautiful heart and a sense of we're all in this together. So it's a pleasure to be in your countries and work with you people and to connect with you now. So thank you so much.
Well said. Yes, so we're just delighted, and so thank you so much, and wonderful to see that we have participants from many different countries. And I think this embodiment work is what the world needs, and it's people coming together like this that is going to make a difference. So thank you for showing up, and enjoy your explorations.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your sharing and for the beautiful practice. So I'll take a few minutes to make some announcements in Russian, and then we will open the breakout rooms, or somebody can stay in this room or hall for kind of questioning and answering the questions. Друзья, делаю объявление на русском. У нас в английской сессии такая есть часть, последняя, завершающая. Напоминаю вам, что наша конференция продолжается, и мы ждем вас завтра на 8-м дне конференции в 9 утра по Москве на очень интересную сессию с Леной Дегтярь. Лена Дегтярь, она научный руководитель проекта «Секта», если вы не знали. Она ученый, и еще она выпускница курса EFC 2018, и она будет проводить сессию под названием «Образ тела и ЗОЖ. Препятствие или ускоритель эмбодимента». Вот. Очень рекомендую, если тема ЗОЖ для вас актуальна, прийти на эту сессию. Это будет завтра. Также напоминаю, что записи всех сессий, и этой в том числе, можно будет посмотреть на странице конференции. Ссылку вы увидели уже в чате. И все записи будут в открытом доступе до 26 числа. Также вы можете приобрести себе запись, в том числе там есть пакет по англоязычным записям, которые будут потом уже в пакетах с переводом. И хочу сказать, что покупая записи, вы не только делаете приятное себе и полезное, но еще и поддерживаете нас, и мы расцениваем это как ваша благодарность нам за то, что мы создали это пространство. Также вы поддерживаете проект «Такие дела». Проект «Такие дела» — это информационный ресурс, который поддерживает благотворительные организации в России, и 5% от всех продаж мы перечисляем им. Вот. Поэтому призываю вас к такой деятельности. И что? Тогда я передаю все ссылки, вы увидели еще проект Living Somatics, также здесь было объявление от Living Somatics о ближайших мероприятиях. Собственно, эти все ссылки окажутся также в чате в записи, то есть они там будут, и, возможно, кто-то от представителей Living Somatics может сделать пост в группе Facebook. Ссылки на наши соцсети вы также увидели там в чате, там есть ссылка и на Facebook, и на ВКонтакте, и в Инстаграме, собственно, возможно, эту информацию продублируют там же, вот. И по традиции я могу передать слово опять Gayatri и Siddhartha for the last words. So you've given out your top tips and they were amazing, but maybe if you have some last words that you would like to share with us before we finally stop the recording, maybe just 1 or 2 words.
Absolutely. So I can say, trust yourself, trust your embodied experience. It's valid and it matters and it's real. So go for it.
Thank you.
And I would say, yes, trust yourself, value your unique first-person experience, and also know that the other person is having their experience, and respect that. And sometimes try to put yourself in their shoes for a moment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was beautiful. And